Mark Twain once said that when there's a gold rush, it's a good time to be in the pick and shovel business. Today, we look at the rapidly evolving markets in the marijuana green rush in our Cannabusiness Chronicles.
Welcome back, everyone. 31 after the hour, and continuing our discussion with the leaders in the marijuana movement and marijuana industry. We're joined today by the CEO of Mary's Medicinals. We've got Nicole Smith on the line. Nicole, welcome to the show.
So much. Happy to be here.
Oh, thank you for being here. And the big news that we've got to announce here with respect to Mary's Medicinals is apparently you guys have a new mobile app that's out, and everybody's downloading these new apps. What is this app all about for Mary's Medicinals?
So this is designed to help patients track their meds, and we're actually making a plea to patients in order to do just that, because the information that we can collect and compile just helps us create better medicinal products.
Yeah, that's a big need, and I'm glad you guys are addressing that. I'm here in Oregon, where we've had medical marijuana since 1998, and I just learned this week that the legislature submitted a bill to finally study medical marijuana patients, find out what works for them, what doesn't work for them. It's like, wow, 16 years later, we're finally going to ask some questions. Is that kind of what motivated you to want to put this app together?
It is in part, and primarily it was just a lack of ability to do any sort of clinical trials. We can do some market research, and that's essentially what we're doing, but that allows us to compile data that ultimately becomes the baseline for us to do clinical studies when we can, or they are allowed by the government.
So this mobile app, you can get it at the Apple Store, and it's available on Google Android. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so how does it work? Is it just like is it like a diary? Is it a weed maps kind of thing, looking for dispensaries? How does it work?
No, actually, what it does is it sets reminders that you can schedule yourself to remind you to track your medication and to basically medicate. So 3 times a day you get a reminder, and you're asked 2 questions. 1, did you medicate? And if so, what did you do? And how do you feel? You also have the opportunity to go ahead and add a journal entry or additional information. But as we continue to develop the app, we'll add the ability to track additional data, like whether or not you exercised or diet or otherwise, blood pressure perhaps, or blood sugar levels, so that you really can take a snapshot and look back on what's working for me.
So is this app then collecting the data and automatically uploading it to you guys for distribution? Do people have control over that? Is there any privacy concerns we need to worry?
Yeah, we don't distribute any of the data that we collect. It's used just for us in order to, produce better products, and B, like I said, ultimately for clinical trials when we're allowed to do them.
Okay. We're speaking with Nicole Smith, the CEO of Mary's Medicinals. You can find them online at marysmedicinals.com. And I see the link here that says that you've got something, Mary's Journal. Is that the online version of what this app does?
Absolutely. It's called Mary's Journal, and it's your way to track your medication as well as how you're feeling, and continue to just support your cannabis medical treatment.
Okay, so someone doesn't have to have a smartphone to be able to do this. They could just get online on their computer and use the Mary's Journal version.
They could use, collect data online through our website, and again, any information that we continue to garner from patients just helps the community at large, right? We just really want to make sure that we know what patients are doing, that they're medicating accurately and efficiently, and that they're getting the best care that they can get given the restrictions that we have.
Excellent. Now, I'm aware of Mary's Medicinals up here in the Pacific Northwest. A friend of mine turned me on to the transdermal patches. What can you tell us about the topical use of cannabis? Maybe inform our listeners a little bit about its benefits and rewards.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mary's is unique in that our products all have a transdermal component to them. Most of your topical products will only permeate the first 6 layers of the dermis. Ours are designed to go directly to the bloodstream for systemic delivery of cannabinoids. What this does is it avoids first-pass metabolism, which actually consumes about 80% of your medicine. So if you're consuming an edible, you're losing 80% to stomach acid and first-pass metabolism by the liver. Our products going directly to the bloodstream allow patients to use less and get just better efficiency.
Wow. What are the varieties of these transdermal patches that you have?
Yeah, so we do 6 different varieties. Obviously, we do 2 types of THC, an indica and a sativa. CBN only, so your cannabinol for muscle spasms and sleep support, CBD, a THCA, which is a non-activated version that has all the benefits of THC without the psychotropic effects, and then a 1-to-1.
Okay. And using these transdermally, some of these products do have THC in them. So do people feel a psychotropic effect from them?
Yeah, so for the THC products that we produce, you will have a little bit of a heady feeling to them. We do have some folks that use them recreationally, but 70% of the products we produce are non-psychotropic and are designed primarily just for pain relief and symptomatic relief from various conditions.
What sort of products do you have aside from the patches?
We do a transdermal gel. So it's fast-acting, a little shorter lasting, but we do that in a lower milligram dose. So patients can augment their patch use with the transdermal gel for breakthrough pain, or if they needed just a little extra support during the day, or also to get just a little bit of another cannabinoid. A lot of people like to pair their cannabinoids in various ratios, so this allowed people to be in charge of their medicine, creating their own blends. And then we do a topical compound as well that has some transdermal constituents. This was designed primarily for folks suffering from basal cell carcinoma, melanoma, and then direct tumor reduction.
It's all fascinating stuff. We're speaking with Nicole Smith from marysmedicinals.com. They've got a new app out on the Apple Store and Google Play to help track your medical cannabis use. This kind of data can be very, very useful for the product development, come up with better products, and also just the general knowledge of the patient base to know what works well for some patients and what doesn't work for some patients. Now, Nicole, I'm kind of interested in the regulatory aspects of this. How many states are you currently sold in, and what sort of differences do you find in trying to get your products on the shelves in the different states?
Yeah, obviously the cannabis industry is a difficult puzzle to solve. We're currently sold in 2 states, Washington and Colorado, of course. But we have just licensed to open in Vermont by April 1st and California by mid-March. And, of course, each state has its own regulatory requirements. So we look to partner with local companies that we feel are the right fit for Mary's and have the best patient interest at heart. And they actually set up to manufacture our products directly in that state.
Right. And this is because we're facing still the federal prohibition that prohibits you guys from shipping interstate. So you have to build a Mary's in each state. Am I wrong on that?
Yep, no, that's exactly right. So we have to recreate our organization in each one of these states as we continue to expand.
Do you think that as we develop these marijuana industries and they're developing in this sort of state by state basis, do you feel there's a time coming when, if that federal prohibition is lifted, suddenly the big pharmaceutical companies get involved and become a big competition for your company?
I think that that's a risk. I think either with rescheduling or legalization, there's definitely a risk for either pharmaceutical companies or either tobacco or alcohol companies to come in, depending on which way it goes. And but what I do believe is that there's a very strong movement within the cannabis community that will continue to support those that were there and struggled through the efforts long before Big Pharma was able to play in the game.
Yeah, and in my perspective, I see that the longer that federal prohibition continues and the longer we evolve on a state-by-state basis, the more loyalty those brands will build in those states. And so I tend to not worry so much about the big pharma takeover. I always like to ask the people in the business about that. Do you have any other...
No, absolutely.
Do you have any other concerns on the horizon here? I mean, we're just beginning the legalization process here in Oregon and Alaska. Any plans to expand here?
Yeah, actually, we are actively talking to a group in Oregon, and I'm hoping that we sign contracts this week and are looking to launch them in the mid-March to early April timeframe as well. So are excited to continue to expand across the entire West Coast. But I think in addressing your question as far as concerns, I think one of them is that we continue to see these regulations in various states come across that are basically throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So trying to regulate CBD only or very specific conditions, and I think they're missing the broader picture.
The broader picture being?
that there's so much value to cannabis on the whole, and it's hard to just legalize one constituent of it and have something that's effective. And what ends up happening, I think, is a quagmire of legislation and, people fighting and vying. I think Florida is a prime example with companies suing one another and suing the state over recent regulations, and just really not looking at the bigger picture and simplifying the process. I think Colorado has done a really great job in our efforts here, especially as we continue to roll out the rec market, that we're very seamless. And I just wish that some of the states could continue to look at the examples that are being set by states like Colorado and Washington and Oregon and follow suit.
I hope so, too. One last question, Nicole Smith from Mary's Medicinals, marysmedicinals.com. I often notice people that get involved in this business and this reform either got busted, got sick, or are just angry at the civil liberties issue here. Is that you in any one of those three or some combination? How did you get involved in this?
Honestly, it was an idea, and honestly, it was a challenge. We were talking to some folks about the industry and some of the concerns that were going on. My background's been in business development for over 15 years, and I had experience in making nutraceutical patches. And I said, I think a patch would be a primary delivery method, and that it would make the best use of a limited resource. And someone said, no, you can't. And I said, yes, we can. And that's really how we got our start.
Well, that's a feel-good story there, Nicole. Just striking back against someone who said you couldn't do it. You've proven that you can. Mary's Medicinals has the transdermal patches, has all sorts of great products. Check them out at marysmedicinals.com and get that new app. Download the Mary's Journal mobile app on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or use it online at marysmedicinals.com. Nicole Smith, the CEO, joining us here for Cannabusiness Chronicles. We thank you for being a part of the show, and good luck in your expansion and growth.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. And when we come back, we're going to have a chance to get into our radical rant. We're going to talk a little bit more about the medical versus the recreational markets. Do they need to be two separate and distinct markets? Or, like Nicole kind of mentioned, is this a plant that benefits everyone so much that everybody should have the same access to it? We'll talk about that more coming up next.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.